What's up everyone? It's Lens Addict here, and today I have with me the Nikon D850, and I'm going to be doing a little unboxing and show you some photo samples. I know this camera is quite old, but it's been a dream of mine to get one of these, and I'm really excited to finally have gotten one. This here, what you're viewing, the viewer, is actually through the D850, so I'm recording this with the D850 currently, but as part of the unboxing I'm going to switch over to my phone and film the parts where we look at the camera using my phone, because I only have one camera with me currently. So let's get started. Let's open the box and we'll have a look what's inside. So starting out, we got the manual and the warranty. We got a little note that says the supplied battery, this camera is supplied with an EN-EL15C in place of an EN-EL15. So this is what the old battery looks like. It holds 1,900 milliamp hours. And it says the battery in the box of this camera is a 2,280 milliamp hour battery. So that means that you get more battery capacity, which is pretty cool. And I think that's like a mid-year refresh or like change. There's also this. Talks about a change to the user's manual. And then it talks about the compatible memory cards. And then we got a snap bridge connection guide. And then the user manual. It's a very thick user's manual. Wow. Very thick. So many things, which is nice though. It's nice to have a paper manual sometimes. Well, that's all the paper stuff. So we have the D850 itself here. Here's the camera. Very nice little camera. Well, it's quite large actually, but it's nice, good to hold in the hand. So the EN-EL15, let's test that. I'm sure that will work in this camera, and I think the 15C will work as well. A cool feature of this camera is that the buttons light up. I don't know if you can see it though, but yeah, you can see the buttons lighting up. Pretty cool. All these buttons here light up, so that's pretty cool. What else we got in the box? We got this thing, which I was very confused by at first, but I found it actually connects to here on the side of the camera. It's like for holding the cables. So here's what it does. It connects on the side and you screw it in. And now you have a little cable management device on the side of the camera, which is pretty cool to see. I'm not going to use it because it removes your wire sealing, but it's kind of cool to see it in the camera. What else have we got in the box? We got our charger. It's an MH25A charger. And then we got our battery. So this is the battery that came with the camera. So here's the difference between the two. It might be fun. It came with a 15C. And we'll hold them both up so you can kind of see the differences. And there's also a capacity difference. So the new battery holds more. 16 watt hours versus 14. So it might give you a few extra 100 photos, which is pretty nice. If you've ever run out of battery on a day taking photos, it's nice to have high capacity battery now. I suspect this is for the new mirrorless cameras. They've decided to introduce a high capacity battery to try and increase the shots or the photos you can take. And that's come down to the D850, which is nice. You also get a power cable, and that connects into the end of this charger here. Just your usual 2-pin output. I don't know the actual terminology for it, but that's what it is. And you get a Nikon strap, D850 strap. You can sell these on eBay for like heaps, like 50 or $100, depends on your region. There you go, a D850 strap. If you wear it, people will know that you're a good target to steal a camera from, and they'll also know that you might be a tourist. Most people don't wear these straps. Might be wrong. Other than that, in the box there is a USB-C, no, not USB-C, micro USB 3.0 cable, which I don't have with me because I was recently using it, but that connects to here. So you get a little cable that connects. That's a very old connector. It's been a long time since I've seen this connector. I saw it on a Galaxy S5 last. Yeah, so other than that, I'll have some more to talk about soon, and I'll change my clothes because what happened is that this unboxing footage unfortunately went missing and I had to redo the unboxing. So you're seeing that redone unboxing here. I'm gonna do a quick little thought section on this camera because I've had it for about a month and I have some thoughts. And the thoughts are that for photos, this camera is like amazing. It's like my favorite photo camera I've ever used. The DSLR, it's like probably one of the best DSLRs I reckon out there. The viewfinder is really good. It's really big and expansive. It's like such a big viewfinder. It's very beautiful to look into. The autofocusing is really good. Probably one of the best DSLR autofocuses. Like when this camera came out, it must have been amazing, but mirrorless now has better autofocus than this and bigger viewfinders. The battery life on this is really good. It's better than mirrorless. One of the few things it's really good at compared to mirrorless. But the video is not as good. Like it's just an older camera. It does do 4K 30, but doesn't do anything else. Like it doesn't do 4K 60 or any like high frame rate, high resolution video. The autofocus in live view is just contrast detect, so it'll be seeking back and forth. Not very good autofocus. So the D8, if you want a more like a lighter, better all-round camera, lower megapixels, 24 versus 40 something that this has, the D850 is really good, or the Z6 or the Z6 Mark II. This camera also doesn't have the 900-second exposure that you can do for photos that the D780 has and the Z6 Mark II has. So if you want to do like really long night photos, this camera can't do that. So if I put it into like M for manual and I keep going down with the shutter speed, it just tops out at 30. It won't go further, it just goes to bulb. So you can do it manually with bulb and an external thing. You can do it longer, but it's nice, for instance, if you're shooting in the rain, you don't want to connect cables to your camera and stuff like that. Just having the, with the D850 and some of the other Nikon cameras, that built in. But yeah, I really like this camera. I like the physical controls a lot. I like how there's like a button for autofocus on or off, and there's a button for changing from AFS to AFC and changing from 3D tracking. You just press this button and turn the front dial. I also really like how there's like dedicated metering mode button and a dedicated white balance mode button over here. And the quality button, I don't think it needs to be dedicated for me. I just leave it in RAW. But you know, some people might really like that. Mode, I'm a bit mixed on. I like just having a dial that I can turn, and I miss auto mode. So this camera only has M, P for programmed auto, S for shutter speed priority, A for aperture priority, and M. So you don't, if you're handing this camera to a friend who doesn't know how to take photos, right? You can put it in P and hope for the best. Whereas the D780 has an auto mode and it almost like does more than P, where it'll go, oh, this is a overexposed, you know, really backlit photo, so I'm gonna brighten up the person's face. This camera doesn't really do that in P mode. But I also like the fact that it has a dedicated ISO button, and the base ISO is 64. So you can almost have like a cheat of like an ND. You can even push it down to ISO 32 on a digital camera, which is awesome. You get really good dynamic range at ISO 32 and 64. I like the fact there's an AF on button and a little joystick to change the viewfinder where it's where the autofocus point is. And you have even more buttons on here. So for instance, you've got exposure compensation, you just press the dial on the back and you got your exposure. You can customize these ones, this one, you can customize, this one you can customize. And then you got a bracketing button. So if you want to do like exposure bracketing, and you can change it to focus bracketing or whatever bracketing you desire, but I just do exposure. And it all comes up on the screen here. So when I press that exposure bracketing button, you'll see it says 0F, and then 3F means 3 photos, and then 5F means 5, and then you can choose the 3. So that's like how big the gap is, and it even visualizes it for you on the screen there. So if you wanted to do like 3 photos with a gap of 3 EV between each photo, it's very easy to just press the button and turn it on, do it and turn it off. Same with like a dedicated shooting mode. So you have slow, continuous high, quiet, continuous. Then you have your self timer and mirror up. The other thing I really like about this camera is how customizable everything is. So for instance, with the self timer in this camera, it does more than just self timer. Like you can actually customize the self timer, how many photos it takes, the interval between those photos. I'm actually going to find that for you now. Yeah, so under self timer, you can choose the delay, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 20 seconds. You can choose the number of photos. I choose 9, and you can choose the interval between those photos, 0.5 seconds. This is really handy for when you're doing like a group family photo, which I did recently. And I put it on a tripod and I said, hey everyone, don't worry if you like blink or whatever like that, this camera is gonna take 9 photos and we'll get one of them good. And we did, and it made it really easy that I could customize it for the situation. And I think like that's just the view of the Nikon cameras, and especially the higher end ones. There's just so much customizability under like everything. You just got menus of customizability. And you even have help though. For instance, like if you press this little question mark here, it'll tell you what each one of them does. So it's not like a menu that leaves you in the dark as to like kind of guessing what the settings do. For instance, even file number sequence, I don't really know what that means. But if I press this button, choose how the camera assigns file numbers when a new memory card is inserted or another folder is selected. And then off, on, file numbering continues from the last number used. Off, file numbering starts over from the highest number in the current folder. So you can choose that option and you actually know what it does because there's a built-in manual on the camera for like every setting. And that's something I really like with Nikon. Even like under battery info, it'll tell you, like, I don't know what battery info is. What's that mean? What's the 0 to 4 mean? I don't know. Well, let's press the button. It says when the battery age indicator reaches 4, the battery needs to be replaced. If the battery indicator cal is displayed, calibrate the battery using the quick charger. There you go. It'll tell you what it does. It tells you about every single little option. And I really like that because sometimes you're out in the field and you see a setting and you don't want to bring this manual with you, but you also don't want to get out your phone and go, okay, where's the Nikon D850 PDF? Oh crap, I'm out of mobile data. I can't look it up. So it's really nice. You're just on the camera, you go, okay, I'm looking at this menu item. I don't know what it does. What does file naming do? I don't know what that does. Let's have a look. Choose the first 3 letters of file names assigned by the camera. You can even customize that. It's pretty cool. But yeah, just buttons for everything is really nice. Other than that, I guess there's another function button here, which is cool, which you can customize as well. I just set it to my menu, and in my menu I have it like to turn the beep on and off and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a real joy to shoot with. Incredible detail, really good quality. There's no shutter shock from the mirror compared to the D780, which does have a little bit. The things I don't like about this camera is it's very heavy. It's the heaviest DSLR I've ever owned. And it means I don't use it as much. So it means that it kind of sits at home, not used as much as it could be, which is kind of a waste. The other thing I don't like is the live view autofocus is just crap. After you've used the D780, it's got the same autofocusing as the Z6 Mark II, but it's missing the firmware updates that made it better, unfortunately. And this camera just has like contrast detect autofocus, where it'll hunt back and forth, and it's just not very good. I've tried using it like the D780 DSLR, and I've been quite disappointed with the autofocus in live view. But it does have face tracking for the viewfinder, and it works quite well. It actually finds the eye, which is really cool, really impressive to see that for an optical viewfinder. And I reckon in like 10, 20 years, maybe 30 years, this camera might be like a classic DSLR where people go, they look back on this and like, yeah, that was one of the best DSLRs at the time. Because most of the companies now just don't make DSLRs anymore. And I think there's something really special about them, especially when I do like portraits and landscapes and I'm like looking at the scene and I go, those photons of light coming into my eye is like what was reflected off right in front of me, the scene in front of me. It's not this screen. And as someone who works in IT, sitting in front of screens all day, I don't want to put my eye up to one anymore. It's tiring, but I don't find it very tiring to look for an optical viewfinder in comparison, especially to the fact that it just doesn't look like a screen really is nice to me. But I think that mirrorless is the way forward. And yes, the Z7 Mark II is like same sensor, better. It's got optical stabilization, like where the sensor moves and stabilizes the scene, even on a prime lens, which you don't get with this. And it's much lighter. So yeah, and the other thing I really like, I guess this is not a downside, but the thing I really like as well is that you can mount really old film cameras on here, film camera lenses, because it's got the screwdriver autofocusing and it's got the little meter here to detect where the aperture ring is. And you just don't get that when you get that mount adapter. So if you go mirrorless and you use Nikon's mount adapter, you don't get screwdriver focusing on those cameras, on those lenses. So if you have like lenses from like 1950 or 1970 that are Nikon, they won't work on mirrorless very well and you'll have to manually focus them and do a lot of stuff manually. But you can put them on here, get metering, get autofocusing, even automatic aperture closing and opening. And I really like that. Sometimes I've been out and about and I'll see someone shooting film and I'll be like, oh, that's a really cool lens, man. And I see they're using Nikon and I say, do you want to try my new fancy digital lens? And they're always like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll try that. And you give them like a big, lens. And unfortunately for them, they might not actually get some of the features. But you use their lens and you can use it just like this lens. It'll autofocus, it'll do everything for you. You can put it in P mode and just shoot snap happy with such an old lens, and it's such a cool experience. And that's something else I really like. And you get 40 megapixels of blurred detail because the old lenses, not all of them are very good. The newer lenses are sharper, not always, but a lot of the time. But yeah, so that's something else. I guess more downsides. This camera is old technological wise, like it doesn't have USB-C. You've got, such an old port. What is that? Last saw that on a Galaxy S5. It's been a long time since I've seen that port. The other thing is there's no charging in camera. So if you forget this, if you go traveling and you forget it or you lose it, you can't charge this anymore. But if you have a D780 or a Z6 or Z6 Mark II, you can just plug it into your computer or any USB-C port and charge your camera with USB-C, and you don't have to bring anything but the camera. So that's something that I miss using this camera. I think that's just the general theme of this camera. It's missing some of the quality of life improvements that the newer Nikon cameras has, and it'll continue to go down that route. Like I'm sure the Z7 Mark III will have even more stuff that's really cool, and this camera slowly gets left behind. But it's still good. I haven't had it ever lock up on me, not once. I've not had a moment where I was like, oh, this camera is doing something really bad. It's completely not focusing or anything like that. Like, it's been very reliable. I've used it in the rain, no issues. It's worked really well. And that, for me, is what I really want in a camera and really like in a camera. Because I've had a Z6 for a very short period of time, and that camera locked up sometimes, and I find like the dials lag. The other thing with this camera is that the dials don't lag. Like, I don't know if you can see, but it's very like instant. And you don't get that with the mirrorless cameras. Maybe you do now, but the older ones that I use, like the Z6, I found like turning the dials, there's always a bit of lag. It felt like I was using a computer and not a camera. And I don't get that with this camera. I feel like I'm using a camera. And not to say the Z6 is not a camera, it's an amazing camera. Same with all the mirrorless cameras, they're really good. And what you see is what you get for the viewfinder. But I found like it feels like I'm using a computer a bit more, especially with the screen, and that I don't like very much. But that's all personal preference. You know, it depends on what you want and what you like. But yeah, if you find one of these used or cheap on sale, I highly recommend it. Good camera, just don't get it for video, get it for photo. I mean, I guess you could say it's still decent for video, right? It's got a headphone monitor and a mic input, so you could do good video on it. Just don't expect autofocus in that video. And yeah, that's all you gotta really think about, I guess. It still shoots 4K, just not as good as the newer ones. Here are some sample photos that I took with the D850. So this is at Sydney Airport, and the next photo is going to be that same photo but digitally zoomed to show you the capability of the digital zooming with this camera. Here's another cool photo from Sydney Airport. So you can see plane taking off there. This is from New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, right at midnight, the fireworks, which are really pretty. That's a good example of the dynamic range of the camera. And this is a good example of the white balance, just straight out of camera. It's really good, no adjustments needed here. Very good auto white balance on the D850, quite impressed with it. And here are some photos from the start of the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. So you can see all the boats getting ready to start. And the next one is of wild oats and the people leaning out on the side, and you can kind of get a sense of how big the boat is and how small the people are. And here's later on in the race while the boats are past the Sydney heads and out towards Hobart. Here's another photo with auto white balance, and you can see the sun setting. Camera did a good job with the auto white balance. Here's from a concert, so you can see the guitarist of the band Meg Mac, and he's looking very serious. And here's Ellie Goulding and her dancers on stage from a concert. And then we got one last photo of Meg Mac, and we'll go back to the main video now, back to my face. I hope you all really enjoyed this video and enjoyed my long discussion about this camera. And if you have any questions or anything you want to see me answer about this camera, I'm very happy to do it. I'll have this camera with me for a bit longer. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. If not, don't subscribe and give it a thumbs down. But if you like it, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you have any comments. See you all in the next video.